So I want you to imagine a stack of paperwork just landing on a desk in some provincial government office.
Right.
At the very bottom of one of those pages, there's just this little signature line, right? And it's authorizing a local hospital to change its official title.
Sounds pretty standard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds incredibly mundane, like this really dry, bureaucratic footnote that's just meant for, letterheads and tax forms and stuff.
Yeah,
But
totally.
but the thing is, that single signature is actually the trigger for this massive physical shockwave. Like a shockwave that is powerful enough to literally alter a city's skyline.
Oh, absolute.
It can completely supercharge a local real estate market
Yeah.
and just fundamentally rewrite how you experience healthcare.
It really is. It's like the ultimate butterfly effect in urban planning.
Yes.
You have this quiet administrative decision on a random Tuesday, and then 10 years later, an entire neighborhood's transit system, their housing market, the commercial identity, it's all been radically transformed.
Right. And so today's deep dive is dedicated to unpacking exactly how that hidden domino effect works. We are tracking the evolution of the Jewish General Hospital of Montreal as it officially becomes the Jewish General University Hospital Center, or CHUGJ.
Right, the CHUJ.
Yeah. And our mission today is to trace the anatomy of this change, to see how a simple medical upgrade ripples out to change the very streets, the housing, and just the overall economy of an entire city.
And just to establish where we're getting this, the insights driving our analysis today are drawn from these really extensive publications provided by wikiresidence.ca and infodrome.ca.
Right, great sources.
Yeah, and both of these platforms have actually made the underlying sources available in both text and audio versions, so if you want to explore the original reporting yourself, it's all right there.
Perfect. So the inciting incident here happens when the Minister of Health and Social Services, that's Sonia Belanger, officially elevated this institution by giving it a university designation.
Yeah, huge deal.
It really is. It is now officially affiliated with McGill University. And this isn't just like a common upgrade they hand out to everyone.
No, not at all.
It makes the CHUGJ only the 6th university center in the entire province of Quebec. So it's joining heavy hitters like the MUHC, the CHU Saint-Justine, the CHU de Quebec Université Laval, and the CHUS in Sherbrooke.
Right. And I mean, to really grasp the gravity of this, we have to look past just the prestige of the title, right?
Yeah.
We have to examine the actual structural machinery of what just happened. Because before we can even look at that urban shockwave you mentioned, the medical implications are foundational here.
Right. The actual day-to-day healthcare part of it.
Exactly. There is this profound structural difference between the new CHUJ and some of those other institutions you just mentioned, like the CHUJ or the MUHC, the McGill University Health Center.
Okay. How so?
Well, those are obviously massive, globally respected institutions, but structurally, they are independent. They are these decentralized entities.
Right. They kind of operate on their own island.
Exactly. They have their own administration, their own distinct boundaries, and they function somewhat separately from the smaller community clinics or the long-term care homes around them.
And that separation creates a lot of friction.
So much friction.
Right.
But the new CHUG, however, is integrated directly into a much larger structural web. Specifically, the Santé Québec Centre-Ouest de l'Île de Montréal Universitaire.
Right. And, when you look at how people actually experience traditional healthcare, I always think it feels like a relay race.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like a hospital handles the acute crisis. Say you have an emergency surgery. Then they have to pass the baton to a completely separate rehabilitation center.
Right.
After that, the baton might get passed again to, I don't know, a long-term care facility or a local community health clinic.
Yeah.
And anyone who has navigated the system knows that the baton gets dropped all the time.
Oh, constantly.
You end up having to explain your mother's medical history to, 5 different administrators across 5 different regional networks just because their computer systems literally don't talk to each other.
Exactly. It's exhausting. But this integrated model, it changes the architecture of that care entirely.
Right.
So instead of a relay race between independent runners, it's like you have a single head coach who is overseeing the athlete from the very first day of training all the way to the finish line.
I love that.
Yeah. And Dr. Lawrence Rosenberg, he's the president and CEO of the institution. He highlights this as the defining feature of the upgrade. This specific integration gives the hospital a continuous, completely unobstructed view and total control over a patient's entire trajectory.
So they aren't just looking at that super narrow window of time when a patient is physically occupying a hospital bed.
No, not at all.
They're actually mapping out the entire life cycle of the recovery.
Exactly. Because the CHUGJ is part of an integrated territorial network, that unified view captures everything. It captures the long-term care nursing homes,
Yeah.
the CHSLDs in Quebec,
Right.
as well as youth centers and rehabilitation clinics. An independent, decentralized hospital like the MUHC simply cannot do that.
Because they don't own the other facility.
Right. They don't have administrative authority over the nursing home down the street.
Yeah.
But under this new model at the CHUGJ, your records, your care plan, your specialists, they are all communicating under one unified umbrella.
That's huge. The friction of healthcare transitions just, disappears.
Pretty much.
If you move from a surgical ward to an outpatient rehab program, you aren't falling through the cracks between different health authorities anymore.
Right.
The physical stress of recovering from an illness isn't suddenly compounded by all this crazy bureaucratic stress of having to manage your own medical file.
Exactly. It is a fundamental shift in the philosophy of care delivery.
Right.
We're moving from just treating these acute, isolated episodes to actively managing long-term health outcomes.
Which sounds amazing on paper.
It does. But, and this is a big swamp, this beautiful, seamless, integrated medical vision immediately collides with a very hard, very physical reality.
Yeah, because now you have this brilliant unified system that suddenly has to welcome an entirely new cohort of medical trainees, international researchers, and all the university staff that comes with the new university status.
Yep.
So the obvious question is, where do you actually physically put all these people?
Right. And Dr. Rosenberg is incredibly candid about this. He just stated it plainly. He said, we lack space.
I mean, that's blunt.
It is. And to solve this, they have initiated this massive renovation and expansion project that is slated to run continuously until the end of 2028.
Wow, so years of construction.
Oh, yeah. It is a massive logistical undertaking.
Yeah.
And it's being spearheaded jointly by the Santé Quebec Network, McGill University, and the SQI, which is the Société Québécoise des Infrastructures.
Because, changing the name of the hospital on a bronze plaque outside the building costs next to nothing, right? But we are talking about an entirely different scale of investment to actually house a functional university hospital.
Oh, absolutely. The infrastructure investments for just the 2024 to 2028 period run into the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just for those 4 years.
Just for those 4 years. The institution's overall capital budget regularly exceeds $400 million for its major modernizations.
That is wild.
Yeah. They are bringing in these cutting-edge hospital architecture consortiums firms like Jodoin and Lamar Pratt and MSDL. They're contracting massive construction giants to come in and modernize these aging pavilions.
And doing all of this while keeping the hospital fully operational, right?
Exactly. That's the craziest part.
Like, you have surgeons performing delicate, life-saving procedures on one floor while literal construction crews are tearing down concrete walls on the floor right above them.
Yeah, it requires an unbelievable level of logistical orchestration. Every single power outage, every water shutoff, every time they need to reroute an emergency corridor, all of it has to be planned months in advance so that patient care is never, ever compromised.
But wait, if you know Montreal, you know the specific neighborhood we are talking about here.
Oh, yeah. Côte-des-Neiges.
Right. Côte-des-Neiges is already completely gridlocked. It is one of the most densely populated, heavily trafficked boroughs in the entire city.
It really is packed.
You can't just bulldoze a block of historic apartment buildings next door to build a massive new hospital wing. So how do you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a physical expansion when there is literally no physical dirt left to build on?
And that right there is the core paradox the CHUGJ is facing. Horizontal expansion is severely, almost impossibly limited by that surrounding urban density.
Right.
So because they cannot expand outward into the neighborhood, they are relying on what Dr. Rosenberg calls an avant-garde solution. They're looking digitally inward.
Okay, digitally inward. What does that actually translate to when we're talking about physical space in a crowded hospital?
Well, it basically means deploying artificial intelligence and virtual pedagogy to optimize every single square meter of their existing footprint. Because think about it, a traditional hospital requires massive amounts of physical space just for basic logistics.
Like what?
Well, you need these cavernous waiting rooms, you need sprawling administrative sorting areas, massive lecture halls for all the new medical students, and you have these static wards that might sit half empty on a slow Tuesday, but then they're totally overflowing on a Friday night.
Right, the demand fluctuates wildly, but the rooms don't change size?
Exactly.
But you're saying AI can somehow shrink a waiting room?
Well, it doesn't physically shrink the room, obviously, but it eliminates the need for the room to exist at that massive scale in the first place.
How so?
Instead of a massive waiting area where 50 people sit around for 3 hours, they are integrating artificial intelligence into their patient flow and their resource allocation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they use these predictive AI algorithms that can analyze all this data, historical discharge data, real-time lab turnaround times, even local street traffic patterns, to calculate the exact minute a hospital bed will be free and cleaned.
Wait, so the system can just like text a patient to arrive exactly 15 minutes before their room is actually ready?
Precisely. And suddenly, you don't need a waiting room built for 50 people. You only need a waiting room for 10 people.
Wow.
Beds are turned over and allocated with mathematical precision, which completely eliminates those physical spatial bottlenecks. By optimizing the scheduling, the physical space that used to be required to just hold people in limbo simply vanishes.
They are essentially mining new real estate out of pure efficiency.
Yeah,
That is brilliant.
it really is.
But what about the students, though? Because if you are now a university center, you have hundreds of new medical trainees walking the halls, and you can't really algorithm away a medical student who needs to physically learn how to do surgery.
No, you can't. And that is where virtual pedagogy comes in.
Okay, tell me about that.
Historically, becoming a teaching hospital meant you had to build massive new physical simulation labs and these expansive lecture halls that honestly might just sit empty for half the week.
Right. Huge waste of space.
Exactly. Today, they are revolutionizing how medical training utilizes space through decentralized digital learning.
So instead of a giant physical classroom, they're using virtual reality.
Exactly. Trainees can practice complex surgical procedures using high-fidelity VR headsets. And they can do this in a fraction of the square footage that would normally be required for a traditional physical simulation lab.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, they can engage with complex, interactive 3D models of human anatomy from much smaller, decentralized spaces all across the campus, or honestly, even remotely from home.
Wow.
These tools allow a much larger cohort of trainees to learn and practice continuously without requiring the hospital to pour a massive proportional amount of new concrete. The hospital isn't just building new walls, it is making the spaces within its existing walls infinitely smarter.
It's fascinating because they literally ran out of real estate in the physical world. They are expanding into the digital space to compensate for it.
Yep.
But I think this brings us back to that shockwave we talked about at the beginning, the one that escapes the hospital walls.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you are injecting hundreds of millions of dollars, cutting-edge AI technology, and elite medical professionals into one highly concentrated pinpoint on a city map, the surrounding streets are going to feel that impact.
They're going to feel it heavily. The result is just a complete economic and real estate mutation of the surrounding area.
Right.
The CHUGJ is now a highly attractive university center, which instantly turns it into a massive demographic magnet. We are talking about a flood of top-tier medical researchers, highly specialized clinicians, international medical students, and senior administrative executives all arriving in this specific part of the city.
And this isn't just a random influx of people, right? It is a very specific demographic. They have specific needs, they have high earning power, and they generally have a strong desire to live within walking distance or a short commute of these really high-pressure jobs.
Exactly, which immediately creates intense upward pressure on the demand for high-end rental housing and condominiums.
Right. Everyone wants to live close to work. And this pressure, it won't be contained just to Côte-des-Neiges. The ripple effect will wash aggressively into the neighboring residential areas too, places like Outremont and Hampstead.
Oh, for sure.
Real estate developers are already analyzing this shift. They're scrambling to acquire empty lots or to redevelop existing properties just to meet the incoming demand for these premium residential spaces that cater to this very specific, demanding professional class.
So basically, if you own a duplex or a condo within a 3-kilometer radius of this hospital right now, your property value is about to get caught in a very lucrative updraft.
Pretty much, yeah.
But an influx of high-earning professionals doesn't just change the housing market. The commercial streetscape, the local businesses, the restaurants, the corner storefronts, they all have to pivot to serve them, right?
Oh, completely. The very DNA of the commercial strips in Côte-des-Neiges will evolve, and it'll happen rapidly. When the median income and the professional habits of a neighborhood shift this dramatically, the local economy naturally adapts to capture that new capital.
Makes sense.
We will see a huge drive for new high-end retail spaces. The local restaurant scene will probably pivot from, fast casual or standard neighborhood fare to establishments that specifically cater to business lunches, specialized dietary preferences, and premium dining.
Right, we'll see specialized services popping up everywhere, like premium fitness centers that are tailored to doctors who work bizarre hours,
Exactly.
or high-end specialized childcare centers for researchers, or maybe even more niche businesses, right? Like organic grocers or boutique coffee shops slowly replacing the older legacy storefronts that used to be there.
Yes. The entire commercial ecosystem evolves to mirror the needs of this newly established university hospital environment.
But hold on, let's look at this from the perspective of someone who already lives in Côte-des-Neiges.
Great.
Because to them, this doesn't just sound like an economic boom. Honestly, it sounds like a looming logistical nightmare.
It's a fair concern.
We just established that this borough is already packed to the brim. If you are dropping a massive influx of new patients, elite doctors, hundreds of students, and heavy construction equipment into an area that already severely struggles with rush hour traffic, how does the neighborhood keep from grinding to a complete and total halt?
It is a critical vulnerability for the city, no question.
Oh.
And the numbers really illustrate just how severe the pressure will be on the grid.
Okay, hit me with the numbers.
So the Santé Québec Center S network already boasts over 12,000 employees.
12,000.
Yeah,
You are essentially operating an entire small town within a city neighborhood just with the staff alone.
exactly. And then you add to that the fact that they handle hundreds of thousands of outpatient and emergency visits every single year.
Right.
Now you add the university status on top of that. You bring in the daily movement of all these new students, the researchers, the guest lecturers, and the additional support staff that's required just to maintain a university-level facility.
It's a staggering amount of people moving around.
It is. This will exponentially increase both pedestrian traffic and vehicular commuter traffic on streets that were, frankly, designed decades ago.
Right. Because a hospital can use AI to manage the flow of people inside its walls all at once, but it has absolutely no control over the city bus schedule outside its front doors.
Precisely. Which means the city of Montreal will have absolutely no choice but to intervene with significant, rapid adjustments in their own urban planning.
They have to adapt.
They have to. You cannot funnel exponential demographic and professional growth into a static municipal infrastructure without causing a systemic failure. The local public transit network will have to be heavily reinforced just to handle the surge.
What does that actually look like, practically speaking, on the street level?
Well, it means municipal planners will have to evaluate the necessity of new, high-frequency bus lines that are dedicated specifically to moving people efficiently from the metro stations directly to the hospital campus.
Okay, so more buses, more frequent stops.
Right. And it requires adapting traffic flows. So possibly altering one-way street configurations in the neighborhood, or installing intelligent traffic lights that can actually prioritize public transit and emergency vehicles during peak hours.
Oh, smart lights.
Yeah. They will also need to expand pedestrian corridors, widen the sidewalks, and perhaps create dedicated micromobility lanes for bicycles and scooters just to relieve the pressure on automotive traffic.
Wow. So the city is going to have to get just as smart with how it moves people through the neighborhood as the hospital is with how it moves patients through a ward.
Exactly.
It really is an astonishing domino effect. I mean, one piece falls on a bureaucratic desk, and suddenly everything from the local coffee shop to the city's master transit plan has to be completely rewritten.
It's wild.
Let's take a step back and just look at the entire board of what we've unpacked today. We started with what appeared to be the most minor administrative update imaginable, right? The simple addition of the word university to a hospital's official name. But that single word acts as a catalyst for this sweeping, systemic transformation across so many domains.
It really touches everything.
Medically, it shifts a fragmented, localized hospital into a fully integrated, territorial patient journey where a single network oversees every single step, from acute emergency surgery down to long-term care in a nursing home.
Yeah.
And structurally, it triggers hundreds of millions of dollars in capital investments, which forces architects and administrators to adopt these avant-garde AI solutions and virtual reality training simply to conquer the physical limits of their own crowded real estate.
Completely reinventing the space.
Exactly. And then from an urban perspective, it completely reshapes the geography of the city itself. It acts as this massive demographic magnet that drives a surge in the local housing market, pivots the commercial identity of local businesses, and forces massive municipal upgrades to transit systems in historic neighborhoods like Côte-des-Neiges, Outremont, and Hampstead.
It really is a masterclass in the invisible connective tissue of urban environments.
Absolutely.
You know, we tend to think of urban development as this highly visible, really noisy process. We assume a city changes when a developer buys a giant empty lot and points to where a new skyscraper is going to go, or when politicians make these grand, televised speeches about funding a new highway overpass.
Right. We look for the bulldozers and the cranes as the signs of change.
Exactly. But when you consider how the CHUGJ designation, which was a purely administrative upgrade on paper, is single-handedly rewriting the real estate dynamics, the commercial landscape, and the transit map of Montreal, it frames a really vital question for you to think about.
Which is?
What quiet, seemingly mundane administrative decisions are being signed in your own city right now? What boring footnote at the bottom of a city council meeting agenda is quietly determining exactly what your neighborhood will look like 10 years from today?
It's a great point. The most powerful forces reshaping our cities don't always arrive with a public announcement or a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Sometimes the biggest shockwaves start with nothing more than a new title on a piece of paper.
Thank you for your attention. You can find all our articles, columns, and special editions in audio and text formats. Our content is accessible on mobile, tablet, computer, and television via wikiresidence.ca. Please feel free to share your comments and suggestions with us.